Hi, I'm Jock.
Hey, I'm Ray.
This week, Ray and Jock are talking about toxic lies, taking credit for other people's ideas, and how to give honest feedback. There's a few things in here which resonate with me around these tips. Tackle your tasks in order of descending importance, so do the most important thing first. I very much, again, as I've said this before, I'm a serial procrastinator. If there's something kind of going, this is really important, it's like, I'm going to put this off, I'm going to put this off, I'm going to put this off until it's almost too late to do it. Just get the important thing done. And then, as he says, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to get it done for the rest of the day, because it's already in the past.
Right. Yeah, so when we started this video call, I was like, can I just have 3 minutes? Because I knew that there was something sitting in my inbox that I needed to deal with. It's the priority for me right now with free.co.uk. And if I didn't, this would be a lower quality conversation from my end.
Yeah, your mind would be sort of half on something else.
Right. Well, and that's what it does to us, right? If we don't take care of those big rocks first, it sits there and weighs on your mind, and you can feel it. And as we all do, those rocks start to build up.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it's not just days and weeks that have gone by; it's months and years. You wanted to take that holiday. You wanted to start that business. You wanted to, if you're in school or early teens or early 20s, ask that person out. These things all weigh on your mind, and we can laugh and feel that they're trivial, but things like this last year have shown that actually taking a holiday is fundamentally really important.
Yeah.
Keeping in touch with the right people and letting them know how you feel is as a human race, this is really what connects us together. And these are the things that actually outweigh our mind than how we're going to solve climate change.
Yeah. They're all big challenges, aren't they?
To us personally, yes, they are.
So let's move on to the next section. So part 3 is giving the workplace a reality check. And the first section, which I quite like actually, is entitled People Who Say They Can Keep a Secret Usually Can't, or The 10 Most Toxic Lies in Business. Now, I quite like these because I think I've heard most of them. Maybe if we just rattle through them pretty quickly. So, number 1, I can keep a secret.
Right.
In my experience, people who can keep a confidence don't brag about it.
Right.
Because the alternative, namely betraying a confidence, is not an issue with them. I quite like that because it's not just even I can keep a secret, but people who feeling, determined to remind you of something that they can do or know or whatever else, often is just them essentially highlighting the fact that they're insecure about that thing.
Totally. They doth protest too much.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a nice hallmark for maturity. That they're experienced enough in life and mature enough that they are self-aware to know that they don't have to justify the secret. It is
tricky, and I mean, I know absolutely that particularly when I've felt I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who are going, why am I even in the same, why am I even in this group of people? It's like, I'm clearly not meant to be here. There's obviously been some kind of mistake. And there's an element of saying, well, I need to make sure that everyone, understands I'm meant to be here. I'm actually qualified to be here. That whole thing of, I don't know if you've ever been to those kind of talks, conference talks where the first 10 minutes are the speaker just telling you about their own achievements and who they've worked with, rather than just going, the fact I'm standing up here should be enough reason for you to be listening to me. Let's actually talk about the thing I'm meant to be talking about. And it's funny how, particularly when I've been giving talks, how I almost kind of try and just dive straight into the talk these days. I think, if somebody isn't aware of who I am and what I've done in the background. And I have had that when the questions have come in later on. So who do you think you are to tell me how to be a product manager? So, well, I have done it for a little while, but don't worry about that. Tell me what you think is the problem here.
If you take the people that perform at the highest levels, let's look at athletes, right? Sure, their coach can't perform the way they can, but that's not what they're there for. They're there to, help you get better.
Absolutely.
And that's motivating you. Asking the right questions, pushing you, motivating you is not about telling you how to do it.
Exactly. The job of the leader, or the measure of success of a leader, is essentially how well they've been able to get the best performance from their team. Or at least that's my view of it anyway. For me, there's a bit we talk about later on, actually, when we're talking about, it's actually one of the few things I disagree with, certainly the way he presents it, but there's this thing about how you're supposed to feed the boss ideas that he talks about later on, how the team's job is to feed the boss ideas because some ideas are worth stealing, and that's your job, to keep the boss fed with ideas so that the boss can keep looking good. And I was going, no, that's not the point. The job of the boss, the job of the leader, is to ensure that the team can cultivate those ideas for themselves. If the team either feels like they should be having their ideas stolen by the boss, willingly or otherwise, or if the boss thinks that their job is to kind of make themselves look good by appropriating other people's good ideas, then I think the boss has got the wrong idea. I would much rather give the credit for a good idea to someone in my team than nick it for myself.
How many people at Spotify and all those two pizza teams of product get the credit? As far as I can see, it's only Daniel Ek that gets the credit, right?
I couldn't say either way, to be honest. I couldn't say. There's a lot of mythology around how Spotify works. Right. Number of articles sort of saying, right. This stuff is, and the stuff, the cross-functional teams, the tribes and so on that everyone has emulated, was fine, except for the fact that's not how it worked at Spotify. What was broadcast was the idealized version of what happened, as opposed to what actually would have happened in real life, which would be a bit more messy. But there's not. I don't think it's that. I couldn't say about how the teams were individually rewarded for or recognized for coming up with particular ideas. I think the problem is that because you're not in the midst of it all, individual ideas almost get lost in the broader picture of what it was. I mean, Spotify as an app is quite complex. I think they'd split up, at some point anyway, they'd split up the app into component parts. So somebody was looking after the playlist, somebody was looking after the player, somebody was looking after the album art bit, so all of the blocks almost you saw within the UI were separate teams working on them. So, it's difficult to say, well, that bit there, the reason why it works that way was down to Fred having a brilliant idea. I mean, yeah, you probably could, but, certainly to us as consumers, we're too kind of far removed from the inner workings to be able to see that. But for product managers, the product managers within Spotify who are in charge of those teams, they absolutely should have been saying in, the quarterly update or the, review, release review or whatever it might have been, saying, yeah, this thing's awesome. And the reason why it's awesome is because they had a brilliant idea to go and do this. But it certainly shouldn't be the product manager standing up and saying, oh, yes, I did this. Because, no.
The only company I've seen, like big corporate, that you can point to the people that created something or pushed for something is Google. Like, there's a ton of stuff that's happened within Google, and you can clearly identify right from Genesis through to production. And that's very rare.
Yeah. I mean, you probably get more of it from open source stuff, I guess, where it's a bit more transparent. And I appreciate that Google does open source a lot of what it does. But yeah, you sort of see it more in open source projects where, something, probably was the work of maybe one or two people to make something happen, just by virtue of the fact they didn't have an entire kind of 50-strong development team hacking away at it. So it was individual contributors that made it happen. But yeah, it's kind of difficult. I mean, I think the closer you are to a particular group of people, so if you're responsible for 5 people in a team, you're responsible for 10 people in a team, whatever. I think it's the job of that person who's, notionally in charge, to kind of make sure that people are recognised for the stuff they've done.
Yeah, I wanted to make the point that as a society, we do structure as a hierarchy. We ascribe more importance to people at the top of the hierarchy, near the top of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Salesforce is all Mark Benioff. There's nobody else there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem because, again, it's that tricky thing of, I think he says somewhere later on in this chapter that, businesses aren't meritocracies, there you go. Number 9, we judge people on their performance. If this were true, the workplace would be a perfect meritocracy. The truth is more like we judge your performance based on how much we like you.
Right.
Yeah. Or how loudly you trumpet your own successes, whether justifiably or otherwise. And that's probably, that's more of a failing of the organization, which then encourages the bad behavior in the people to do that kind of thing. If the organization was better at rewarding performance properly, and there'd be no incentive for people to be doing that because everyone would already know. Right.
Have you seen the film Soul yet on Disney Plus?
No, still haven't yet. Still haven't.
Right. There's this one scene where the guy asks for an award, and when it's being presented to him, it's being presented as we're presenting you this award because you asked for it.
Exactly.
And this is what I love about Pixar stuff, is they really understand the human psyche, so they can poke fun at these things that we all think about and do in our own heads, and often put into the world.
Yeah, I do like the way he describes when the bosses say, "I want totally honest feedback," or when they say, "I want to know what you really think," because it's I like the way this kind of progresses, because first he says, to begin with, they probably mean it. It's the moment after you tell them what you really think that the statement becomes a lie, because they suddenly realize they don't want your blunt opinion. So it's like the fact that, the question was asked, kind of honestly, what do you think? But don't tell me what you think, because actually it might offend my sensibilities,
Right. Understanding that is fundamentally true for basically everybody is really important to know, because you're going to get asked the question, tell me what you honestly think. And you must know that if you say it, they will, regret asking the question, stroke, hold you responsible for that thing not being good because you were the messenger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a nuanced one, this. There are plenty of occasions, he says, to tell the boss the unvarnished truth. Ironically, when the boss asks for it, is not one of them.
Right.
So it's just interesting how he's not for a moment saying that you shouldn't speak precisely, give it the rundown, but it's just picking the right moment and almost
universally.
It's almost an acknowledgement of the fact that when somebody is asking you for that question, they're showing a bit of vulnerability. So don't go and stamp all over it. But you go easy with them, Yeah, it's tough. I guess it also depends on the relationship you have with them, right? So the closer or more equal a relationship you have with someone, the easier it is to say, "Yeah, that hat doesn't make you look cool, dude."
Yeah, you've got tons of experience here. Somebody asks you, tell me what you honestly think. And it's, going to offend them when you tell them. What are you going to do?
See, I will always tell them, because I don't have that right mental filter, I'm afraid. I had this guy genuinely, he'd been really nice to me and, was phoning me up to ask for advice about a business idea he had. because it's relatively straightforward, I'm not going to kind of necessarily say what it was, but I said, yeah, it's not something I go for because fundamentally it offends my sensibilities about, how content creators work and how you get recognized for what you do. And for me, this feels like a little bit deceptive, in the way that you're proposing it. And you could almost hear a kind of the crest falling, as it were. He was very much crestfallen after that particular chat. But
right,
but I don't think in all fairness, I could have said to him, yeah, it's a great idea, you should do it, because where's the value in that? It's like, yeah, it's great, you should do it. It's not something I'll ever use because it fundamentally offends me. But
so this is something I got from you. I would just ask the question back to them.
Yeah, I mean, it was tricky because
what do you think about it?
He obviously thought it was a great idea, right? Because it was something that he was almost scratching his own itch about, and it was solving his own problem about how to get content, more kind of more read on LinkedIn and that kind of thing. So, it was a good idea, and I'm sure it would be effective in the way it did it. But if I had the choice of using that particular thing in effect to make my content seem more read, more liked than it was, then it's like, well, that's, it doesn't help me it doesn't help my sense of, honesty to put my stuff out there and artificially inflate, a positive reaction to it. So I said it was a really tricky one because, as a technical exercise, it probably would have worked and worked very well. And I don't know whether he's done it or not, but, if he has, then, all win to his sales. But it's not something I would choose to use.
But putting yourself back into coach mode, surely you would then, say, what do you think about it? Yeah, I think this, this, that, the other. And then, great. What have you done? Have you spoken to customers? Have you validated? Yeah, I have. Okay, so who have you spoken to? Oh, my friends. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Cool. So who do you think is going to be using this? Who would you like to be using this product? Oh, this person. Great. Have you tried to speak to them?
Oh, and yeah.
So you work them round to it.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong. The thing is that in this particular case, because I think there is a proportion of people who would be absolutely fine with using that thing to, to growth hack their content. I think there would certainly be a proportion of people who would be perfectly happy to use that without any qualms. The thing is that, he was aware of that, and he knew there would be a selection of people, but I almost wanted to make him aware that there was a bunch of people who probably would be in the same boat as me, which is like saying, well, there's no cutsies on this. It's you've got to kind of earn yeah, exactly.
How long has it been since you've used the word cutsies?
Well, it's true. It's like, if you're trying to get a bunch of likes, it doesn't feel right if you've just basically bought 1,000 likes.
Right. I heard cutsies in the playground at school.
Yeah.
That was last century.
Come on, I haven't left the playground, mentally speaking.
Oh, we have to get Jordan Peterson on and talk about men and growing up.
Oh man, but yeah, it's one of those weird ones. So yeah, I think the problem I have is that particularly if it's somebody I've dealt with before, I've known. If somebody asks me for an honest opinion, I'll give them an honest opinion.
Right, but if you know that they're going to immediately regret asking you because they've made themselves vulnerable, what would you do differently now?
Okay, that's a harder question.
Now that you've got a moment about it, and they're not in front of you.
I think there is certainly a more measured way of getting that feedback across. There's, whether it's just me or whether it's something that lots of people do, when you kind of get into your stride in a good proper rant,
right.
when you've got over the initial kind of inertia of getting into the rant, and now you're in your stride and you're going, another thing. It's like, stopping your feedback before you hit that point is probably what I say to myself.
And it's like you're looking at yourself and you're like, what are you doing? Stop. And you just keep going. And you can see their reaction and they're not enjoying it and you just keep on going.
Yeah. There's a number of times in my life where I wish I'd bitten my tongue. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Well, look, if anybody watching has got a better way of, dealing with someone asking for feedback and the feedback is going to be awful, be good to get some suggestions.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, can you solve this problem for us? Because I'm clearly crap at this anyway. You're listening to the Pig Wrestlers podcast. We're meant to be reviewing the book Never Wrestle With A Pig by Mark McCormack, but we don't always get around to it.